Hello and welcome back to another UCL Fantasy Team Selection video. We're now into the quarterfinals, or the second leg of the quarterfinals, and it's just a week after the first leg, which didn't really go too well, I don't think, for most people. No teams whatsoever kept a clean sheet, and no players really that were too highly owned were really doing too well in terms of goals and assists and stuff like that, I suppose. To be honest, really only Griezmann, maybe Foden as well, are really the only two popular picks that done something last week. So we are hoping for a better second leg this time round. Of course, we're going to go over the clean sheet odds and the chance of progression now compared to last week, now that the first leg is over. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And then the team selection and transfer plans will be at the end of the video. So starting things off with the second leg fixtures, they are swapped round this week. We do have Barcelona and PSG and Dortmund and Atletico playing on the first day this week, with City and Real and Bayern and Arsenal playing on the second day. So again, with your three transfers, you might want to be looking at having as many players on the first day as possible. Again, I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue, because I think most of us should have about 4 or 5 of them anyway. So maybe just getting an extra 1 or 2 in with your transfers could be a pretty decent idea. And then obviously we want to be trying to use the transfers to go for players who are more likely to progress into the next round. Obviously, with a lot of tight results last week, 3 each with Real City, 2 each with Bayern, Arsenal, 3-2 with Barcelona, PSG, and then 2-1 with Atletico Dortmund. There is no set in stone qualifiers so far, so we don't really know. So I guess it is still up for grabs, and then it's worth noting you get 5 transfers for the semi-final as well. So even if you wanted to transfer someone like a Dortmund player who might get eliminated, I still think that's a fair enough idea, because you can easily take them out in the next round. So our chances of progressing have changed now, of course, now that there is the first leg scores. So the numbers in grey is last week's chance of progression, the chance of progression of each team before the first game was played, and then obviously the ones in colour is now this week, now that the first leg is passed. So Barcelona has now a massive chance with their home game against PSG and going through. So again, 22% chance for PSG to go through. Maybe you want to look at getting those guys out, but at the same time, PSG have to go for it. They're a goal behind, playing away from home, so someone like an Mbappe probably isn't someone you want to be taking out, because they're going to be very attacking, and you're definitely going to be wanting the guy who is going to be scoring all the goals for him in your team. I think Mbappe's someone that you just keep, and then you get him out if they get put out to the semi-finals. So Man City up there, still a similar chance of progression in there, only 5% more, 72% they're up to. Nothing really too much changed there. Real Madrid again the same, 28% from 27%. Atletico up a little bit as well, we're now up to 67%. Bayern and Arsenal have basically just swapped from where they are. It's still basically a 50-50 going into the game in Munich. So again, not really too much to decide there. And then Dortmund sitting there at 33%. So again, just something to keep in mind when making your transfers if you want to go for the guys who are much more likely to progress. Obviously you want to be loading up on the likes of Barcelona and Man City players. So next up is the clean sheet odds. Again, something we were looking at last week, which really didn't mean anything, because not a single clean sheet was given in the game. A lot of different changes now. You can see most of the teams that were up the top last week are now right down the bottom this week. The likes of Arsenal and Atletico, 2 teams that had the highest chance of a clean sheet, are now up there with the lowest. So again, just something to keep in mind if you maybe loaded up on Atletico players against Dortmund. And after they didn't keep a clean sheet, you probably want to be looking at getting a couple of those out. I think that would be a smart transfer. Even just moving them on to someone like a Dortmund player. I think even though Dortmund aren't as likely to go through as Atletico, someone like Hummels is still guaranteeing you a good few points with his ball recoveries, so I think that's worth it for this round, and then you can just worry about taking him out afterwards. Again, 5 transfers is huge, especially when most of our players are going to be probably guys who are going through anyway. The likes of Man City and stuff, I think most of us have Haaland, Foden, that kind of thing, so I think looking at looking at getting some of the Atletico defenders out could be a good move. PSG, I don't think too many people have too many PSG defenders. Real Madrid, I think if you've got a Real Madrid defender, I'd definitely be looking at getting them out because they are quite expensive, and I think there's definitely a couple better options you can go for now. Same with the Arsenal. I think a lot of people maybe have even the triple up on Arsenal: Raya, Saliba, Ben White. I definitely would be looking at maybe getting at least one of them out. I don't think it's the worst idea to keep maybe someone like Raya, because I don't think the goalkeepers really matter too much. I don't think I'd waste one of the 3 transfers on that. But I think even the defenders, moving to someone like a Hummels, maybe a Maatsen from Dortmund, maybe Guerrero from Bayern, I think could be a pretty decent move because Davies picked up another yellow card and he's suspended. So the guy who we had in Matchday, or maybe it was the round of 16 first leg, Guerrero picked up a 10-pointer. I think he could be a pretty decent one to have again at only 5 million, cheaper than most, or I think all of the starting Arsenal defenders. So if you're looking to kind of save up some budget, I think Guerrero could be a pretty decent one in there. And then obviously the Man City and Dortmund defenders up there with the highest chance of a clean sheet. And then the goal scoring odds, not too much has changed. We do basically have the exact same players as last week with pretty similar odds of scoring. Mbappe tops the list again at 46%. Haaland and Morata both second and third. Again, I'm pretty sure it was the exact same top 3. Even top 4, I think Ramos was sitting at 4th as well. Didn't actually start last week, but I would imagine he will be starting alongside Mbappe this week. Harry Kane has went up a little bit, I think up to 31%. Or maybe it's basically the exact same, but everyone's kind of dropped a little bit in terms of percentages. Griezmann at 31%, Saka and Havertz both about 30%, the same with Bellingham and Vinicius Jr. So again, pretty similar players as to last week, so if you were watching these videos and you were looking at the goal scorer odds, you probably have a good few of these guys anyway. And I really don't think there's too much to change. The thing with Morata, he's obviously at 40%, and in terms of chances of scoring, but I don't actually think he's scored too many goals very recently at all, so I'm surprised that Griezmann isn't a lot higher than Morata is. Personally, I think I'd prefer Griezmann if you've got the money there. I think value-wise, Morata is definitely the better pick, so I think he's like 3 mil cheaper. But I think if like Griezmann's obviously the penalties and stuff like that, so I think if you do have like the unlimited budget, I'd definitely be picking Griezmann over Morata, even though Morata has the higher goal scoring percentage. And then moving on to my team from the first leg in the quarterfinals. Again, like I said at the start of the video, it not really went too well for me. Only one player really picked up double points. The captaincies were a bit shit, and Foden was really the only good performer there. Kane I had captain on the first day, obviously scored, but he picked up a yellow card as well, so we only ended up with 5 points. I then gambled the captain over to Mbappe, who I expected to at least score 1 goal, and only picked up a 2-pointer, so that didn't really work out too well. And again, the kind of players that I normally have that would pick up the ball recoveries, like Kubarsi, Maatsen, weren't really picking up too much ball recoveries either, so that wasn't ideal. And obviously there was no clean sheets at all either. And then Bellingham, Haaland and Diaz, happy enough with the substitutes, only missed out on 1 point going for Kubarsi instead of the likes of Haaland or Bellingham. But again, not the end of the world. And then obviously Zaire Emery didn't start. Hoping he starts this week, so I don't think I've got the money to take him out. Again, can look at my transfers in a little minute. So I think it was a 45-point week from me. Dropped about 150 places in terms of world ranking, which again isn't the worst thing in the world. I can easily make that back up with a decent, like one decent pick. So again, not too bad. But these are the transfer plans going into this week. So here we are then. The plan is to take out a couple of the defenders to go for a couple cheaper options so that I can try and upgrade a couple of my midfielders. So Diaz and Ben White are the two that are currently coming out. Diaz obviously highest odds to keep a clean sheet, Man City are, but they're still only at 33%, so I just don't see it happening. Real Madrid need to score against Man City because there's no way that Man City don't. So I don't see Man City keeping a clean sheet this week. And Diaz doesn't really pick up too much points outside of that. So Diaz is going to come out, Mats Hummels is going to come in. Obviously Dortmund have the second highest chance of a clean sheet this week. And I do see Atletico just parking the bus and keeping their lead away from home against Dortmund. So we're going for the triple Dortmund defence here. Hopefully that does quite well. And then obviously, as I was mentioning, Guerrero will now be playing at left back now that Davies is suspended, so he's going to come in. Again, probably someone that's going to come out in the semi-finals, but we can obviously deal with that when it comes. I think Guerrero could do quite well, and he always kind of gets involved with the attacking returns, as we've seen if you've played previous UCL fantasy games. And then we've got Rodri coming in midfield. Probably the only one I'm not really too sure about. I do have 0.3 million in the bank there, and I would prefer to get rid of Zaire Emery. Right now, Rodri is coming in for Rice. Again, I'd like to get rid of Zaire Emery instead. Hopefully, I can get some early team news on him. On Zaire Emery, obviously, in case he's starting. If he is starting, then I'm probably just going to keep him, and then we'll do this move from Rice to Rodri, because Rodri has the higher chance of going through. I don't want to get stuck with too many players that are getting put out, so Rodri would be the one coming in. And then if Zaire Emery is going to be benched, I think the option is going to be Vitinha. He's 0.4 more than Zaire Emery is, and obviously scored in the last round, and has been picking up kind of steady points, 3-4 points in the previous round. So I would rather have him for just a wee bit more expensive than Zaire Emery, and we'll do that if Zaire Emery is confirmed to be on the bench. So that is the plans for now. I don't really plan on changing this too much. Again, do kind of struggle to find 3 transfers to make. I think the attack I definitely want to keep, because I think Mbappe's going to do well. And then Kane and Haaland obviously have their home fixtures. Midfield I'm happy enough with. Bellingham might have to come out in the next round, but I don't want to take him out just in case, because obviously Real Madrid need to win as well at the Etihad. So happy enough for that. Rice, Zaire Emery, White and Diaz were the 4 guys that I kind of want to look at taking out. The rest I'm more than happy with. So they are the only 4. And then in terms of players to come in, Hummels, Guerrero, Rodri, and then possibly Vitinha over Rodri. We'll see what happens in terms of Zaire Emery's starting position. But that is going to be it for this week's UCL Fantasy Team Selection video. If you are new, please make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed it. So once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.